Hello, guys. How are you? I am Innocent. I'll be taking you for operations management in supply chain. We'll be together until you write your exams. So today we're going to look at the first unit. That's basically introduction for us to understand what operations management is all about. So we'll go through some sections from our start guide, and then at the end, we'll look at some typical exam questions that you might meet from this first unit, which is the nature and scope of the operations management function. So this is our introduction unit that we'll look at today. So as we will be together, we'll look, we also have a look at your assignment that you will be given later on. We'll go through that assignment. We'll also revise. In fact, we'll be focusing more on going through the typical exam questions. So as we do each unit, we'll be measuring on the questions that you might need in the exam. So that is how we'll be tackling our units up to the last one. So as we go through our units, or each week, you are free to ask where you don't understand. If you have something to contribute, you are also free to do that. Okay, so our first unit, which is the introductory unit, usually, most of the things that are in this unit are based on our start guide. We just want to introduce operations management. But next, I think it will be next week when we start, we have more typical exam questions from this unit, and then we progress to other units. Okay. So starting for introduction, we are saying the successful management of operations is important when organizations have efficient operational processes. The decisions operations managers have an important role in achieving efficient operational processes. So maybe you in the future you're going to be an operations manager. You need to know that the decisions that you take are very important in achieving efficient operational processes of the organization that you work for. The scope of operations management explains what aspects are essential in operations management. We also look at the scope of operations management. We introduce it to you. It is important that an operations manager understands the relationships that exist between the different functions within an organization. We also look at this. We have different functions within an organization. It is finance function, the marketing function, operations function. So as an operations manager, you need to understand the relationship that exists between these functions. Also, differentiating between goods and services is important for an operations manager to understand. We know that an organization, business organizations that we have either produce goods or services. Okay, so you need to know the differences between goods and services as an operations manager. We also look at the differences between goods and services. That will be our last part of this unit. Okay. Right. So in our understanding of operations management, let's start by defining what it is. Operations management is defined as the management processes exploited, conceived, deliver, create, and distribute goods and services to customers that are value adding. Okay, so operations management, therefore, we can see that it is the management of activities that relates to the creation of goods and services through the transformation of inputs to outputs. Okay, that's basically operations management. Later on, we have a look at the transformation processes where inputs are transformed to outputs. And then we have a question based on the transformation process. So value added said the distribution of goods and services to customers that are value added. So value added can be defined as the additional value of goods over the cost used to produce it. For example, value is added through the manufacturing operations. Okay, someone saying sound is not good. Do you all hear me quite well? Are you getting me well? Hello, guys.
Hello.
Are you getting me quite well?
Not 100% clear.
Not
you are clear from my side.
Sorry?
Very clear from my side.
Very clear. Okay.
Yes.
Others are saying not so clear, but I don't know whether it's from my side or from your side, guys, because others are getting me clearly. So it means maybe it's from your side, I don't know there. Okay. So when we are saying value added, it can be defined as the additional value of goods over the cost used to produce it. So for example, we see the value is added throughout the manufacturing operations. We'll look at this later on when we look at the transformation process. Operations management includes processes in areas such as productivity. And operations management, we have productivity, we have efficiency, satisfying the needs of the customer, e-business, we have global competition, and customer service. These are some of the areas that you can find, areas in the processes that you can find under operations management. So we are saying a business organization cannot function without operational activities. It might be a business organization that is manufacturing goods or that is providing services. These businesses cannot function without operational activities. So it's very important to start operations management because it is the basis for business organizations to function. Right, growth of operations management in the manufacturing industry. So the field of operations management, we have seen an expansion from the 1990s. A manager in a manufacturing business is no longer responsible for only pure manufacturing. So back in the days, the manager in the manufacturing business was only responsible for manufacturing. But now there are more responsibilities that have been given to the manager in the manufacturing business, such as supply chain management, inventory management, and the basic maintenance of equipment or machinery in the business. So that's why now we are studying operations management in supply chain. During the 1950s, the manufacturing boom needs better products. So factories were erected to provide the ever-increasing demand for more and better products, and as a result, productivity improved. So from that increased productivity, it meant that a lot of people were required in the operations industry produce the manufactured goods. So as the manufacturing sector was expanding, the need for service providers to look after the product sold increased. So the expansion of the manufacturing sector also saw the expansion of the service sector, because these services were required in the manufacturing sector. So later on, we'll see that the manufacturing sector and the service sector are interdependent. They need each other, meaning one cannot function without the other. Okay. The growth of operations management in the service industry. So the principles that are used in the manufacturing sector can also be used in the service industry. When you're saying manufacturing sector and service industry, I think you know the differences. The manufacturing sector, this is the one that provides tangible products, right? So any business that provides tangible products is in the manufacturing sector. Anything that you go and buy from a supermarket is provided in the manufacturing sector. And then the services industry, they provide the services are intangible. We also look at the difference. We look at the difference between goods and services. So whether it is a business practice, a fast food restaurant, or a hospital, these provide services. So principles that are used in the manufacturing sector can also be used in the service industry. Tasks such as scheduling, inventory management, and many others are performed in the service sector. There is scheduling, there is inventory management as well in the service sector. These, we find them in the manufacturing sector. So they are also used in the service sector. Professionals like electricians, technicians, dentists, and others provide services to people and businesses. In the last 2 decades, employment in the service sector has become far higher than in the manufacturing sector. So we have seen employment increasing more in the service sector than in the manufacturing sector. So these 2 sectors, which is the manufacturing and the service sector, must have a correlative existence because they are dependent on each other. The manufacturing service depends on the manufacturing sector, depends on the service sector, right? So we say there are services that are needed in the manufacturing sector, like electricians are needed in the manufacturing sector, fix electricity and other things that may be electricity. Technicians are needed in the manufacturing sector. And then in the services sector, they use manufactured products. If you go to a hospital, they use a lot of manufactured things. We have chairs there, we have beds, we have blankets, all these, they come from the manufacturing sector. So these 2 sectors should have a correlated existence because one cannot function without the other. One cannot function without the other, right? Right, moving on, we have decisions made by operations managers at different levels in an organization. We have decisions that are made by operations managers. For you as an operations manager, you make decisions at different levels. So the following 2 interrelated sets of activities are necessary to manage the operations function successfully. We have the day-to-day management of processes, right? That's the state of first. These are processes that make things happen. The day-to-day management of processes, we are talking of processes that make things happen in a business organization. And then we have the management of the strategic role. This is the management of the needs of the customers and what the markets require. So these are very important, the set of activities. They are important to manage the operations function successfully. So these two interrelated aspects of activities, that is the day-to-day management of processes and the management of strategic role, require operations managers to make decisions which depend on the time frame and type of decisions made. So to manage operations properly, an operations manager needs to make decisions at 3 levels. We say there are different levels to make decisions. We have the strategic or long-term, these are long-term strategic or long-term decisions. We have the tactical or medium-term decisions, and then the operational planning and control, which are also called short-term decisions. So as an operations manager, you make decisions at 3 levels: the strategic level, which deals with long-term decisions, and then the tactical level, which deals with the medium-term decisions, and then the operational and planning and control, which deals with short-term decisions. So you need to understand these decisions, because sometimes you might be asked a question that we are supposed to differentiate between the long-term, medium-term, and short-term decisions. So I'll find questions. I do have some questions for this. Later on, we'll look at questions where you will be differentiating between these 3 types of decisions, or these 3 levels of decision making in organizations for operations managers. Right, the first level is the highest level. We say it is strategic decisions. So these are decisions which are usually very broad, concern operational strategies. They are made by senior management team, and they have long-term significance. That is from 2 to 20 years in the future. Right? These are strategic decisions. They are very broad. They concern operational strategies. They are made by senior management, and they have the long-term significance. So that is from 2 to 20 years in the future. So examples of strategic decisions: deciding where to locate facilities, right? It's a strategic decision. Deciding whether or not to launch a new product, launching of new products, that's a strategic decision. Deciding on a new process for a product, and also deciding on a new layout for a plant. These are all strategic decisions. They are made by senior management. And then the next level, which is the mid level, is the tactical decisions. These are medium-term, less complex decisions made by middle managers. The first set by senior management, and then tactical decisions, these are medium-term. So they are made by middle managers, and they are less complex compared to strategic decisions. The time period for tactical decisions can be any period from a couple of weeks to 2 years. And both the first one, we said 2 to 20 years. So tactical decisions can be from a couple of weeks to 2 years. They follow on from strategic decisions and aim to meet the objectives in any strategic decisions. So the strategic decisions, they have got their objectives. Each strategic decision has got objectives. So these objectives, these are the ones that are made by decisions. Tactical decisions try to meet those objectives of the strategic decisions. Examples of these tactical decisions, we have identifying the customer and also identifying target demands. These are examples of medium-term decisions, which are called tactical decisions. And then the lower level, we have the operational planning and control decisions. The operational decisions are defined as day-to-day decisions which are made by junior managers that are simple and routine. These ones, they are very simple and they are made by junior managers because they are lower level decisions. There's a very short term time period for making this type of decision, from a couple of weeks to hours, and from a couple of hours to a day or a week. Right? Because here we have two, we have operational planning decisions and control decisions. So the first one, these are the operational planning decisions. So examples of decisions regarding the planning and production of goods and services, we have deciding how much inventory to carry, right? Deciding the quantity of raw materials to purchase, and then deciding how much overtime to work. These decisions are made by lower level managers. And then also under these lower level decisions, we have the control decisions, which can be defined as those decisions that are concerned with the problem areas where standards have to be set, activities and output monitored, and corrective action taken. Examples, we have deciding on the productivity of the factory and deciding on the budget control. So these decisions are taken by lower level managers or junior managers. They are simple in nature. So these are the three levels of decisions that the operations manager need to know or be involved in. Okay. Right, so why is it that we start operations management? Why do we start operations management? Okay, to determine how people organize themselves for a productive enterprise. That is, first it is in where we start operations management. Also, to know how goods and services are produced. Some of us, we don't even know how the goods that we use are produced. We just use those goods. So we need to know how they are produced. That's why we start operations management. To understand what operations managers do. Always hear that operations managers, they are operations managers. For us to understand what they do, we need to start operations management. And the other reason, it is such a costly part of an organization. If it is a costly part of an organization, it is worth studying because organizations, they are there to make profit. So if there is something that is costly, it needs to be studied so that we can find ways to minimize the costs. And then the fifth reason, to ensure competitiveness in the organization, right? If we start operations management, then we can be able to improve it. We can be able to improve the operations management department. Therefore, the organization can be competitive compared to other organizations. So it is a very important department that needs to be studied. Okay, the scope of operations management. The scope of operations management. So the scope of operations management includes making decisions that affect the production of goods and services, ensuring the relationship between the different functions in the organization, and then guaranteeing the entire organization works together as a system. Right. So under the first part here, which is making decisions. So we have the first part here, decisions. The technique used to make a decision will depend on the scale of the decision made. Risk factors should also be taken into account when decisions are being made. So we have steps in operations management decision making. These ones I'm just going to skip them because at the end of this unit, there is a question from a question paper that we will look at, which talks about the steps in the operations management decision making. So we'll go through these steps using the question at the end of this unit. Okay, the steps in operations management decision making. Right, so the other section here, that the scope of operations management, we have functions. The three major functional areas of an organization are, we have operations, we have finance, and marketing. These are the three major. We are not saying these are the only three functional, these are the only functional areas within an organization, but these are the major functional areas within an organization. That's the operations, finance, and marketing. So in the manufacturing industry, operations produce the goods, and then in a service organization, this department, the operations department, produces services. The organization, and then the last part, which is the system. The organization as a whole can be seen as a system. The main purpose of the system is to generate profit. To achieve the goal, the main system can be divided into subsystems, e.g., operations, finance, and marketing. These are the three major that we talked about there. We also have other supporting functional areas, human resources, information systems. We also have them in there, organization. A decision that is made in any of the three subsystems will influence what will happen in subsystems and also the entire system. I'm saying decisions that are made in the operations functional area, in the finance functional area, and in the marketing functional area, they affect what will be made in other subsystems, or what will take place in other subsystems, as well as in the entire system, which is the organization. Because these ones are the major functional areas. So whatever takes place within these functional areas affect all other areas and the organization as a whole, which is the system. Okay. Right, moving on. We have the relationship between the different functions within an organization. We all know that organizations, their main objective is to produce a good or a service for profit. Business organizations, most business organizations, they are established to make a profit. We do have some organizations that are non-profit organizations, but most of them, of these business organizations, they produce goods or services to make profit. So the major functional areas that we talk about are the finance, operations, and marketing, and their supporting functions perform different activities but are all interrelated. Finance performs its activities, operations performs its activities, marketing performs its activities, but these three are interrelated. They work together. The finance function or the accounting function, this function, it makes the money available, buy raw materials in new machines, pay salaries, and meet many other costs. That's the function of the finance function, or the role of this function. buying raw materials, buying new machines, paying salaries to the workforce, and then meeting other costs that you can find within a business organization. And then we have the marketing department. This is responsible for communicating the organization's products and services to its markets to generate customer requests for products or services. That's the marketing department. It communicates with the customers so that the organization will know what customers want in terms of products or services. And then the organization will provide those products or services. A very important part. Because without customers, the organization cannot function. Without finance, without money, the organization cannot function. And then lastly, we have the operations department. This is the responsible for fulfilling customer requests for service through the production and delivery of products and services. This one is for meeting what customers require. It might be products, it might be services. Those are catered under the operations department. So we can see that these are three major functional areas for sure within an organization. Okay. So in addition, there are support functions which enable the core functions operate effectively. And these are the three are the major, and then we have support functions, which are the human resources functions, clinical functions, the information systems function, so on. They support those three major functions. This is the three major departments in an organization. For example, here we have ABC Private Limited. We have the finance department. Under the finance department, we have the accounts payable, accounts receivable, investments, loans, and then under the operations department is at the middle. We have the production, logistics, procurement, then product design. And then under the marketing department, far right, we have sales promotion, market research, advertising, customer satisfaction. Right, so they work together to ensure that the organization achieves its goal of generating profits. Okay. Right. Let's look at the transformation process. Let's look at the transformation process. As I said, later on, we'll cover a question that is called the transformation process. So you need to listen very carefully here as we go through the transformation process. So the transformation process explains the activities that occur in the operations of an organization. The transformation process is tasked with producing the goods or services of an organization. So we are saying this is a process that takes a set of inputs and transforms them in some way to create the output, which could either be a good or a service, because we say organizations either produce goods or services. So the transformation process takes the inputs and then it changes them or it transforms them to create the outputs. The outputs, these are the products, the goods or the services that we buy. The inputs, also known as the 8 M's, later on the next slide, you're going to look at the 8 M's of inputs are used to produce the finished goods or render the service of an organization. the inputs go through the transformation process to reach the state of outputs, right? We have inputs, then they go through the transformation process where they are transformed or changed. And then at the end, we'll get the output. So we have different types of, two different types of inputs. We have the transformed inputs. So the transformed inputs, we're looking at usually materials and data, right? Materials and data usually. We're looking at materials and data that are changed during the operations, right? Raw materials, to be specific there, data or information, these are changed during the operations. Those are transformed inputs. And then we have transforming inputs. The resources, e.g. machinery, equipment, and we can also add here staff or labor. We have staff or labor that are needed by the operation to do the changing or transformation of inputs into outputs. So the transforming inputs, they don't change. They are just used to change inputs into outputs, but they don't change. The transformed inputs, they change. You have raw materials. At the end, you have a product that is different from the raw materials. So you need to know the difference between the transformed inputs and the transforming inputs. Transforming, these are the ones that you are using. Machinery, equipment, staff, or labor. You're using them to change inputs, but they don't change. Okay. So this is the transformation process in organization. We have inputs. Inputs, they are made up of the 8 M's that I talked about. We have money, we have manpower, we have materials, we have methods, management, machines, messages, and markets. These are the 8 M's of inputs. And then from the inputs, we have the transformation process, which includes systems and processes. These are the systems and processes that transform or that change the inputs into the outputs. So they do the what? The cooking, so that we get the end product. And then when we are here at the transformation process, that is where the value is added, because we had raw materials here or inputs here, right? And then value is added under the transformation process, so that we get an output that is value. So from the transformation process, we have the outputs. These are finished goods and services. So from the outputs, there is feedback that goes back to the inputs. We also have feedback that comes from the transformation process. So this feedback from the transformation process and from the output goes back to the inputs. If the output is not of good quality, maybe let's say for example, the output is not of good quality, the feedback will be carried from the output that they are not of good quality. And then the organization will focus on the inputs. They have to find good quality raw materials. Or they need to train, or if the products are not good quality, but the inputs or the raw materials are good quality, then they need to train the manpower so that they produce good quality goods or services. So that's feedback that comes from the output. It goes back to the inputs. And also have feedback that goes to the transformation process from the outputs. If there are problems or defects with defects on the outputs. So this is our transformation process, which has got inputs, the transformation process, and outputs at the end. And then we have value that is added to the transformation process, and then feedback that comes from outputs, and then feedback that comes from transformation goes to the input. Okay. Right, so the 8 M's of operations management that we saw there on that feed, inputs are defined as what is put in, taken in, or operated on by any process or system. Those are inputs. They are put in, taken in, or operated on by any process or system. So we have 8 M's that we use. The first one is money. This is the finance available to produce the respective goods and services. An operations manager facilitates this process by means of budgets. How does the operations manager get in under the M of money? The operations manager facilitates this process by means of budgets. And then we have the manpower, human resources, employees, whatever you call them. It involves the selection, mentoring, training, and rewarding of the workforce. How does the operations manager come in? The operations manager is involved in job structuring and performance management, among other things. Okay, we have materials. These they refer to roast from which finished goods are made. Materials refer to roast from which finished goods are made. An operations manager, in conjunction with the purchasing department, is responsible for the obtaining, storage, and quality of all materials that are required in the manufacture of goods and rendering a service. That is how we operations manager is involved under the M of materials. We have 5 more. We have methods. A method is a collection of related structured activities in which a specific sequence produces a service or a product. An operations manager needs to choose and design effective methods that will guarantee optimization in the use of the resources of the organization. And then we have management, the other M. Management is the coordination and administration of tasks to achieve a goal. An operations manager is involved in setting up structures that will assist management in its role of planning, organizing, and controlling. You know the functions of managers: planning, organizing, and controlling. So the operations manager set up structures that will assist managers to plan, organize, lead, and control. And then machines, these are devices that transmit or modify energy to perform or assist in the performance of human tasks. The operations manager is to ensure that the machinery utilized for the production of goods and services is reliable and well maintained. That is how the operations manager is involved in the machines. And then we have messages. Messages are the communication between departments, management, and employees. Messages can be the material requirements plan. I think we'll look at this requirements plan during on the later units. And then the master production schedule or the budget available for the production of goods or rendering of services. Markets, which is the last M, the sum of all the buyers in the area or region under consideration. An organization, in relation to an organization, the market, talking of the all the buyers in a certain area or in a certain region where the organization is targeting. And then in operations manager is to be aware of the markets and the market segments in which the organization expects to operate. Right, so these are the 8 M's of the inputs, their meanings, and how the operations manager is involved under each M. Okay. Right, moving on with the transformation process, we looked at the inputs, which are the 8 M's. And then on the transformation process again, we have the systems and processes, right? This is the part of the transformation process that ensures value is added to the inputs to guarantee that the output have a higher value. We are looking of here, the center of the word of our diagram here. These are the systems and processes. Okay. And then we have feedback. We have our feedback here. If you look at our diagram, we have our feedback here. So the feedback, a regular measurement, and to ensure that the proper transformation process is followed. And then we have value added from the top. You can see value added there. The block at the top of Fig 1.2 represents the value added to the product or service. It refers to the increase in the value of an item after any stage of processing. And then lastly, we have the outputs. On the far right here, we have the outputs. An output, this is the amount of something produced by a person, machine, or industry. The value of the output should be greater than the value of the input. Okay, so for the organization to make a profit, the value of the output should be greater than the value of the input. If, let's say, you peg the values of the inputs and outputs in monetary terms, let's say inputs, they cost or their value or they cost 50 Rand, the output should have a value of, let's say, 80 Rand. So that when the organization or when the business sells the output, it's going to make a profit. So the value that is added under the transformation process or under the processes and systems, value that is added is the one that will enable output to add a profit. Okay. Right. Differences between goods and services. Differences between goods and services. You might see a question, even in the exam, that would be asking you to differentiate between goods and services. There's a question in the past exam paper where there was a question, I think it was an assignment or the exam, where there was a question which was asking you to differentiate between goods and services. So operations management is concerned with both the manufacturing and service industry. Manufacturers utilize operations management to produce a tangible good, while the service providers utilize operations management to produce a service. A good, which can also be called a product, can be defined as a thing that is the result of an action or process. And then a service, this is an economic activity that produces an intangible product such as education, entertainment, lodging, and government services. It might be health, it might be those municipal services. So a good is tangible, a service is not tangible. So let's look at the difference between these two, a good and a service. Okay. Right. Goods, services, goods are tangible, services are tangible. you can touch a good. Right now, you are sitting maybe in front of a laptop, or you are using your phone. That laptop or phone, it's a good, right? But right now, I am providing tutoring services to you. This service is intangible. The laptop, you can touch it, but the service that I'm providing, to you, tutoring, is intangible. You cannot see it, you cannot touch it. But your phone, you can touch it. Your laptop, you can touch it. So goods are tangible, services are intangible. Number two, goods are produced by manufacturers, and then services are produced by service organizations. Goods, they are easy to store, and then services impossible to store. You cannot store a service, but you can store goods. Number four, goods can be transported, a service cannot be transported. Number five, for goods, there's a delay between production and consumption, right? There's a delay. When a good is produced, it cannot be consumed, immediately. There's a delay between when the good is produced and when it is consumed or used. But production and consumption of the service takes place at the same time. I'm producing a service right now. You are consuming it. So there's a delay when there are goods, but for services, production and consumption, they take place at the same time. Goods, they maintain value, but in services, they lose value quickly. And then number seven, goods, they are less likely to be unique. Services, they are likely to be unique. Number eight, under goods, little or no contact between manufacturer and customer, right? There might be no contact between the manufacturer and the customer. There might be middlemen in between. But for services, interaction between customer and provider is high. The one who is providing the service and the customer, they interact. Number nine, little or no participation of customers in their goods. But for services, participation of customers in the service. Number 10, centralized away from the customer goods. And then services, the facility of the service is near the customer. Next one, goods mostly automated, and then services very labor intensive. Number 12, goods, they are easy to measure quality. Services is difficult to measure quality, but can be measured, but it's difficult. And then next, goods do not depend on one person. And then the service determines the standard of the quality. And then the last one, goods easier to measure output. And then services cannot measure output accurately. Right? The output can be measured, but it's not accurate. Okay, so these are the differences between goods and services. You might see a question that would be asking you to write the differences between goods and services in a tabular format. Okay, right. I see a hand that has been raised. Yes.
Hi, Innocent. I hope you are good.
Yes.
Can you please provide an example of how a service would lose value rapidly?
Sorry, you come again?
Point number 6 says services lose value rapidly.
Okay.
Do you maybe have an example of that?
Okay. If you buy, for example, a laptop, it can maintain its value for a very long time, right? But if it's a service, the service that I provide right now, maybe after you are done with this service that I've given you is no longer valuable to you. You've gained what you want. So it can lose value quickly if it is a service. Okay, it might be even to if you go to a healthcare facility and then you are treated and then you are now okay, but to you, it will no longer be valuable. But to others who are still in need of that service, will be valuable. But to you, the value will be lost as soon as you recover, maybe. So a service can lose value quickly, but if it's a good, cannot. It maintains its value for a long time. Okay, you answered?
Right. Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Any other question? Right, so here I have some questions. Here I have some questions for me. The first question, let me open the question paper first so that you see the question paper before we go through the question. Let me show you the question paper. Right, this is the question paper that I have with me here. It was an assignment. So we have case study here, the Dutch pork supply chain. There is the case study, there is the case study, right? And then the first question says, in the context of the above case study, recommend any 5 steps in operations management decision making, which may help Dutch pork to improve its supply chain. Make use of relevant examples to justify your recommendation. Right, so if you look from our study guide, we have 7 steps, right? We have 7 steps, but the question is saying recommend 5, right? Saying recommend any 5. So we have 7 steps from the study guide. So you choose any 5. The question is not saying use the first 5 or the last 5, but any 5. So if you pick any 5 from the 7 that we have in the study guide, it's to be okay. Right. So the steps in the operations management decision making that we have in our study guide are step 1, the reason for taking the decision. Right? The reason for taking the decision. Here, there might be a problem. For example, the Dutch pork supply chain, they might be facing what problems? Usually, decision is taken when a problem arises. So you talk about that under this first step. Give examples that are relevant to the case study organization, if possible. You can even look for examples from the case study itself. If you cannot find an example from the case study, you can make an assumption. You can use other examples, but try to relate the case organization. And then step 2 is definition of existing circumstances and pending circumstances. That's the second step. Step number 3, setting of the objectives. Step number 4, identification of all the alternatives. Step 5, selection of the best plan available. And then step number 6, fine-tuning of Okay, sorry, sorry guys. I think my audio was turned off by this disruption that took place here. So I was saying that these are the steps in the operations management decision making. Step number 1 up to number 7. But our question is saying recommend any 5. So you can choose any 5 that you want. The ones that you see, you can write them well. Then choose those 5. Tell us about the state, what it is about, and then give examples from the case study organization of how that organization can use that statement in relation to the problems that the organization is having and where it wants to make the decision. So these are the steps that are followed. Any 5. Right. So I was saying that you can make assumptions if you cannot find information from the case study to give as examples for a step. Make assumptions or find out the examples that are relevant and then give those examples. So for question 2, it's about the SARA campaign. It's there in our study guide on page 28. SARA campaign background. You can read that case study. I will give you about 3 minutes. It's not very long. And then we go through the questions that are there. See how we tackle these questions. That one, that case study is a typical also exam question. Okay. Right. So the first question on that case study about the SARA campaign, it says SARA's transformation process in a diagram. Depict SARA's transformation process in a diagram. So you need to draw a diagram to show the transformation process of the SARA campaign. So we have input resources or we have inputs for the campaign. And then from the case study, we have been told that under inputs, we have been told that there are types of inputs which are transformed resources. These we have cotton, we have yarn, and lyocell. These are the 3 transformed resources that we have been given. And then in others, but we have not been given. So we write these 3. And we have the transforming resources. The case study also says the transforming resources are facilities, staff, and equipment. So under input resources for the company, write transform the resources and transforming resources. And then you list the ones that have been given. And then from there, we go to the transformation process of the company. Under the transformation process, there are activities that are done by the company. The first one is to move raw materials from the warehouse to the manufacturing site. It's been given in the case study, moving raw materials from the warehouse to the manufacturing site. And then the other activity under the transformation process has been given, it has been given in the case study, is to blend inputs together. And then the last one is to store final products for a short time. So these are the three activities that the Zara Kanban undertakes under the transformation process. So under this transformation process at the top, we have the value that is added to the input. And then the transformation process takes place. And then from the transformation process, we have the outputs, right? Under the outputs, we have been told that we have clothes and accessories. These are the two types of the outputs for the Zara company, clothes and accessories. And then under these clothes and accessories, we have those for men, for women, and for children. But just it's fine if you list clothes and accessories. And then these outputs are the ones that are sold to the customer. And then from the outputs, we have feedback. We have feedback that goes back to the inputs. Okay, we have feedback that goes back to the input. So this basically, this is the transformation process of the Zara Kanban that is given on page 28. Okay, and then the second question, we are almost there. The second question says, identify and discuss 3 of the 8 M's Zara is utilized as inputs. So if you read the case study, you must be able to identify 3 of the 8 M's that have been utilized by the company as inputs. The first one is money, right? When you're talking of money, the money factor deals with funding all activities associated with establishing and managing business profitably. There is a need for funds to run the business. Zara used money to purchase raw materials from its key suppliers in Spain, Portugal, Turkey, India, and China to be treated and transformed in the process. Right? So you need to take information from the case study that will support why you are seeing money. It's one of the 8 M's that has been used by the Zara Kanban. Okay, and then we have materials. We have materials. It's another M that has been utilized by the company. Every business needs materials to make marketable products and services using the identified methods in management, techniques, and money. Essential here are procurement, storing, and utilization of appropriate materials. Zara purchases raw materials such as cotton, yarn, and lyocell, etc., and stores them for utilization in the transformation process. Right? So that's why we are seeing the material M, the M of our materials has been used by the Zara. Give a supporting statement. And then we have manpower. The manpower factor deals with the people who are taught to manufacture or produce the marketable products using technical methods while being directed and controlled by management and utilizing money to achieve the goals of the business. Zara staff operates with competence in the transformation process to produce the final product, right? So these are 3 of the 8 M's that we can find in the case study that have been utilized by the Zara company. Okay, we are not given the number of marks. So usually when you are writing either an assignment or a test or an exam, we are guided by the number of marks, but that question doesn't have a number of marks. But next time we'll be looking at questions that have got number of marks so that you know the length of your answers. Okay, and then the last question says, explain how Zara has utilized the transformation process to create efficient and effective operations. So the Zara company, I said, is from our study guide on page 28. So inputs such as raw materials are transformed into outputs, clothes, and accessories. There are several steps used by the company. Inputs are received from key suppliers. Materials are stored until they are needed. Zara plans the design and production in a unique facility. Materials are moved to production areas. Workers convert materials into finished products. And then products are inspected and tested to ensure quality. Finished products are shipped to customers. And then customer feedback is used to adjust the transformation process. So this is how the Kanban is utilized the transformation process to create efficient and effective operations. Okay, and so those are the 3 questions for that case study. So these are the questions that I wanted us to look at for unit 1, which is our introductory unit. Next week, we'll look at unit 2. We'll be focusing on questions. So when we are in the lecture, and I disappear for sometimes when I disappear, please don't go away. I will quickly come back because usually it will be my Wi-Fi being affected by load shedding, but within a short time I'll be back. So we need to be in the meeting. Okay, thank you very much. This is what I had for you for our first lecture. Any questions from you guys? Any questions from you guys? Any questions? Kaya, do you have a question? Nogubonga, any question? Prudence or Prudence, I don't know. Spindile, Buyokazi, any questions?
No, we're good for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. As our introduction, I will forward this open presentation to James, and then you can get it from James. Thank you very much. Let's meet next week. Next week, please, want you to be prepared. You need to have questions during the lecture. So go and read you need to go through unit 2. And as we cover questions from that unit, exam questions, I want you to be asking a lot of questions. Okay, thank you very much. Let's meet next week. Have a good night. Goodbye.
Okay, bye-bye, sir. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.